Hello, divine, beautiful souls. This is Energy Speaks podcast with your host, Catriel. We have a amazing cosmic guest here today. It is Dawn of Astrology. How are you today, Dawn?
Hi, I'm great. So glad to be here. Catriel.
Oh, wow. The universe shifted in order for this podcast to happen right here, right now.
Yeah?
For real. Seriously, the first podcast that I had was very earth-shattering like this one. Because right before it, I literally didn't have a specific chord for me to be able to do the podcast. And I realized that my cord was gone when I got into I never moved my cords. And it was gone. And so I went and took the exact same route to go get it at T-Mobile. And then I realized they didn't have a specific cord. So I had to go to Walgreens and this whole thing. And people started literally giving me free things along the way. And I was like, this is weird. And I lost my phone while I had it in my hand. Not in my, it somehow disappeared in my car. And I was just like, okay, we're shifting something huge now. So what is going on?
It is. It's a visceral shift. You know, we are, and you're an astrologer as well. And so whether you're an astrologer or not, we are aware. It's a tangible, visceral shift in the energy. We are just in the week of a few days before the final eclipse, closing the eclipse window for the Sagittarius Gemini axis, which we've been all in for 18 months. And I think everybody is so hyper ready for a shift that we're embracing it. And it's palpable. I mean, it's palpable. I know you and I both shared that we're both Sagittarius rising. And, and so, I don't think it's just that we are feeling the fire more than other people. Maybe we are. But there is a shift in lightheartedness. You can feel that something very karmic is completing. It feels like, new timelines are already in place and amped up and ready to go. And I think it's very exciting. It's much needed. It was
Okay, we're back on, guys.
Wow. Did you lose your phone again?
Yo, that was wild.
It is. It is electrifying. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of that Uranian energy at play. The nodes are shifting. The North Node of Destiny, the karmic node, is shifting into Taurus, and Uranus is there.
Right.
This is electromagnetic.
I was literally guided to go on my phone and see where Jupiter's at, and I was right. Jupiter is at huge play here because it's the timeline of the story is rolling forward because it's no longer in retrograde, and it is in Aquarius.
Right. It's the collective, and Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and here we have Uranus transiting the fixed earth sign of Taurus, where the node of destiny is moving into. And so there's been a lot of electromagnetic voltage, amped up energy. And I think Jupiter in Aquarius in the late degrees, preparing to move into Pisces is like expanding that last extreme jolt, of the shift. We feel it. It's showing up in tangible form. It's materializing, Taurus, the material body, the human form. And so this is tangible. It's touchable. We are experiencing this in a real 3D organic way, right?
More than that, I feel. And I noticed that even the story that I just shared, that happened to be 6 months ago because I was literally in Gemini season when that happened. And it's kind of showing, where we're wrapping up, like you said, those full circles, like that karmic, because it's one, that whole 6 months away, we're sharing that energy and seeing.
Exactly right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, we're like sharing that energy, that complementing energy, and actually flipping it upside down too.
Yes. Yes.
Especially because of I'm sorry.
No, it is a 6-month cycle. You're right. Like, it is a completion. The energy of the last eclipse plays out for 6 months. So this is the culmination. So, you nailed it when you said that was 6 months ago in Gemini.
It's just wild to see it play out in your life and you actually notice it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Awareness literally is bliss.
It is. Awareness is the key for us, realizing these patterns. Anytime we are shifting the nodal axis and we're talking about eclipses happen on the nodes of destiny, the north node that we're heading towards and the south node that we're releasing. And so we've been in this 18 months of Gemini, like you were talking about, kind of like that frenetic mind, all of these ideas. It can be very creative. But the Gemini energy has been super frenetic this year. There's been a lot of information, a lot of communication, and the thing about Gemini is it takes in all of the information, everything. It wants to hear it all, explore it all, good, bad, true, untrue, helpful, just, hearsay. It doesn't matter. It's not like that Mercury Virgo where it disseminates facts. It's just gathering all of this information. And so our minds have just been scattered with creative projects and communications and conversations. And so now we're in this energy where it's getting ready to shift, and it's already shifting, and it's going to materialize. That thought takes form, and Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, will be retrograding in all Earth signs next year.
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah, it's in January, right?
From air. From air to earth, from thought to form, from ideas at play to them actually materializing. So, it is. Wow. It's a movement of air energy, and it's grounding those ideas into a practical expression, into a usable, touchable expression. Like, all of the ideas in the world are a moot point if we don't utilize them or put them into action, right?
Wow. That, that is so beautiful. You just put that together for me. Were we all in air signs last year for retrograde for Mercury?
All of the retrograde, yes.
Does that always occur that way?
Pardon?
Does that always occur that way?
It does not always occur that way.
Whoa.
No. In fact, a lot of things have been kind of a little out of the norm of the cyclical nature of the cosmos this year. kind of obvious, right?
Right.
Some cycles. Yeah, big cycles have been completing, starting with that stellium moving through Capricorn in 2020. And that hasn't happened since the Protestant Reformation.
Wow.
This is a close cycle. Pluto is now direct. Like you said, Jupiter's direct. All these outer planets are direct. We have Chiron stationing direct in December. Neptune in Pisces stations direct 2 days before the eclipse on the 4th, before the new moon. So on the 2nd, 2 days from now, Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, that spiritual realm beyond the veil, stations direct. And so that's already a nebulous, kind of foggy energy. And with that Neptune stationing direct, we'll never experience that, that 20, I guess it'll be 20 degrees. Let's look where it stations direct. Pretty close. Neptune,
you might want to do it. I might actually cut you off on accident.
That will never happen again in our lifetime. So Pisces is the final sign. So this is a new dream. Pisces is the dream world. Neptune's the ruler of that dream world. This is a new dream. It's the end of the old, the beginning of a new. And we've got Pluto direct in Capricorn approaching that 27-degree mark, which marks the U.S. Pluto return, which hasn't happened for almost 250 years, like 247 years. When was that? Like July 4th, 1776, when the United States broke away from England, the Revolutionary War. So it's endings, completions, karmic completions, like shifts. We have all been through the gauntlet the past few years, and we're ready. We're ready for the lighthearted, Sag, exploration, freedom seeking, sovereignty, right? The joy, the truth of the joy.
Totally. I mean, I can even see in my own life, like coming into the Sagittarius season, and right now, okay, so it's Hanukkah, second day of Hanukkah. Mm-hmm. Well, now it's the third day of Hanukkah, technically, because we're doing it tonight. And, I've noticed that whatever was stuck before, like that energy, those different things in our life that were stuck, are now literally being broken free.
They are.
Like, for instance, I've been waiting on a letter for, I don't know, depending your perspective, months to a year, specifically for this one letter, as more information was gathered, right?
Wow.
And today I received that letter to change the big letter, okay?
Wow.
And I was just like, whoa. And it's very Sag-like too, because it's like I'm moving to Israel.
Wow.
Get this one. Hashem, and Hashem I use, it means the name essentially Hashem had me book a flight on Thanksgiving, okay? For January 11th, 2022. So that's 11122. Then arriving in Israel on the 12th, so that's 11222 at 4:20. Like, you can't make this up. Like, for real.
You really can't. And there's so much of that, February 22nd, 2022, 22222. That's when we have that Pluto return for the United States. Can't make that up.
No, you can't.
2022. And both Pluto and Neptune will be, I think, at 22 degrees during that.
Oh my
gosh.
It's
a pretty significant awareness. There's no way you can miss the signs right now. That there's a spiritual vibration shifting, in the dates of your flight, in the numbers that we see. All of these things, Catriel, they're just parallel spiritual modalities, whether it's the numerology or, the chakra system or the sound hertz frequency,
right,
or the alignments and the aspects and, the astrology and the cosmos. These are all parallel spiritual modalities that we see reverberating, and they're what I call confirmations of spirit. You book that on Thanksgiving and it gives you those numbers of the date. Those are confirmations and validations from the spiritual realm that, you're tuned in to your higher consciousness and you're following the urging of your spirit, And that's a beautiful thing. And you were right about the blockades, the shift, the crumbling, because we've all had this ongoing collectively, Aquarius is the collective,
right?
And Saturn, Lord of Karma, rules and restrictions, which I think that's shifting too, because Saturn's in ancient domicile. Like, Saturn's not as square as people think.
No.
Like, it doesn't care, how unorthodox or radical whatever you're creating for the future is, or even if it's never been done before. It just wants to know you're going to stick to it, follow it through, and see it through to the end, or you're going to master this.
Right.
And if that's the case, it's going to support that Jupiter expansion.
Right.
And so this Saturn has been in a square all year long to Uranus and Taurus, the earth sign, Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius. So this ongoing square all year long is why we have all felt this kind of blockade, this blockage like you talked about. And that third and final square of the year happens on December 28th.
Wow.
And now that all the planets, the outer planets are moving direct, these blockades are literally crumbling before our eyes. The shift really is happening where we can make some forward momentum. We can feel like, okay, we've had all these ideas, these Gemini thoughts, and now they're really, really able to move through the crumbling blockade and materialize in a tangible proof of the hard work and that we've been put in, the thought we've put into this. Now, Uranus and Saturn will still meet up into 2022. They don't have an exact conjunction, but they come within 1 or 2 degrees up
right.
until first third of the year. So it's not completely over, but it's kind of like we're over the hump.
Right.
We're gonna, it's like we're sliding down the hill on the other side.
Right.
And so we do feel like we've gotten through the blocks and they're crumbling. They're not all gone. We will still see some resistance, but I don't think it's so much like resistance that we'll see in this next year. Saturn is kind of restrictive, but it's also, we're in this process of creating, a new future, a new world, a new collective, a new system, as that old Capricorn structure has
right.
crumbled. It's crumbling. And so I think we've tried new things this year collectively. And so Saturn's like that karmic check. It's like, okay, it's going to show us where we've put in the work, and it's going to show us what works, right? And the things that don't work, it's going to stop it, So whatever that is for you personally or for us collectively, we'll see some things next year that I think will seem like restrictions or blockades, but they're not. They're just like a building of a sustainable system. And so we try this doesn't work, let's try this. And Saturn will let us know whether it's viable for
real.
The long haul.
I liked something that you said in regards to Saturn. It's not as square as we think. And
it's not.
And I feel you're spot on, because, the original rulership of, like zodiac energies, it held both Capricorn and Aquarius, and that says something, because like at that point Uranus wasn't even in the picture. And and so like that shows something, that they were already tuning into these energies from that perspective of there is somewhat of I say this oddly, expansion with with Saturn, but like different. I don't know how to explain that. It's like the transition between a expansion and a shift.
It is. To me, I'll tell you a little story, because this is the kind of platform that we can do it on. This is a spiritual platform. I have done a lot of investigation of Saturn in my own chart, in my own life, because, I've seen it as a restrictive, suppressive, even oppressive energy most of my life. But it feels different now. In Aquarius, the shift feels different after 2020. And, in a lot of the research, it went back to even some ancient mythology of Saturn, back to when it was even a female energy instead of a masculine energy.
Right.
And we call it Lord of Karma, Father Time. And so it's associated with the father. But, Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, and the Capricorn archetype is that mountain goat, right?
Right.
And so it represents mastery of skill. And you picture this mountain goat climbing up these rocky Alps through the snow covered all the way up to that really high, cold, rocky peak. And Saturn stays the course. It follows through. It makes the summit, right?
Right.
And in this article, it was talking about Saturn on some ancient or, older, historically, old to us, back in like, I think late 40s, early 50s, some tarot cards. And it was depicted instead of a mountain goat, it was depicted as a unicorn. And so the story behind that is, we don't know what's at the top of that that peak, that icy, rocky out, because we're not going to do it. Only a Saturn, Capricorn, diligent, follow through kind of archetype is going to do that kind of hard work. So it's really a story of transconfiguration, mastery of self, the alchemizing of your own spirituality, and sometimes even attributed to like the rainbow body of ascension.
Yeah.
And we think of Saturn like that, but it really is a story of how you can transform through your mastery of self and follow through, because no one else knows what's up there, because they're going to give up. We're going to give up. I don't want to walk that icy, rocky out, but, I think it's a beautiful perspective to think of Saturn as that powerful structure to support our transformation.
I completely agree. I kind of want to take it almost full circle here, because you kind of have to wonder, all right? So I'm going to give you a little background. I study Western astrology, but I also study Medical Astrology, which is Jewish astrology. Mm-hmm. And so I love playing with all of the different energies simultaneously. Because that's what they are, they're energies. But if you think about it, I'm with you. So there's Hebrew months. Kislev represents Sagittarius, and Tevet represents Capricorn, and Hanukkah falls into both of them. It is the one holiday that is not to a specific zodiac sign. It's literally to both. So you're talking about the miracle of Hanukkah literally is part of Sagittarius energy and Capricorn energy.
It really is transconfiguration via the spiritual truth. It's beautiful. and that just...
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that just echoes it. The story you told, it's an echoing of that power that you are representing with, Jewish astrology. And I'm sure Vedic astrology and many others have the same parallel theme for sure.
Right. And it's I've noticed just by we're talking about energy. When you put, your energy towards something, you're going to receive something back. That's just how the laws of the universe are. And I feel Saturn's teaching us, if you put large amount of energy in this vibration, you will receive something back. You may have to wait a little bit, but it will be returned to you full. and I think it's a master teacher in patience. And also, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with patience, but also remembering the lightheartedness from Sag to keep going.
To explore, to learn more, and to ascend. Yes, the truth, seeking the truth.
Right.
The spiritual truth, right?
Yeah.
Not the truth, but the spiritual truth. Because I think Jupiter with Sag is it's the higher heart that operates above the human heart, above the human ego. Right. It is the ultimate. And interesting that we're going to have this eclipse closing out the Gemini. South Node is in Sag. And so I think many of us are going to have the roof raised on our ultimate truth.
Totally.
There's more. There's more. Everything we thought was the totality now is subject to revision.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting the way that just, Hashem just showed me in my mind's eye. It's here's a huge, piece of paper with a story on it. And that represents Gemini and all of the words and all of the different stories within it, right? But it kind of represents Sagittarius a little bit too, But then here is an eraser that comes along with this, solar eclipse, and it says we're going to erase all of that here, right on the earth, because of course we all, we know that, Gemini is the earth sign right now. So it's going to be very real and tangible to us. You know? So I'm really curious to see what that looks like. What are we erasing to be able to write a new story with?
It sounds like disclosure of something, doesn't it?
Right?
It's like there's some information that comes in that is physical proof, tangible proof, that leaves you no other option than to eclipse out a former belief system.
Right.
That's what it feels like to me. Again, like you, what is that going to look like? I'm excited to know. But I think that, it reminds me of like, you live your whole life and Sagittarius studies, and it's an educated belief system. It's not just an opinion.
Right.
The truth is based on a lot of hard work and study and truth. And so it's hard to let go of that because you put a lot of study into learning that, and it's based on some fact and some truth. So how do you let go of your truth and receive a higher truth? And so it's like you live your whole life, let's just say hypothetically, thinking that, a sand dollar is the oldest fossil in the entire world. And you've studied this, you've developed this as your truth. And you go to the beach during this eclipse and you're digging up this old sand dollar that's older than anything that exists. And you find like this unknown dinosaur bone that predates by a gazillion years anything ever known to man. Like, what do you do? Do you just like cover that back up in the sand? Like, what do you do? It's like, oh, here's my sand dollar. Forget the bones I just found. Like, we will have no other choice but to realize there's something more. I think that it's going to be an eclipse of a belief system that we think is all there is. It's an ushering in of an expansion of, Jupiter's moving into Pisces, December 28th is an expansion of the spiritual realm, the understanding of that world beyond the veil, the limitless possibilities, divine inspiration, expanding that dream into, while we've got the North Node in Taurus, into a practical, tangible form. We're making some radical shifts with Uranus there.
Yeah.
But because it's radical doesn't mean that it won't have a practical purpose.
Right.
Like that it can't improve our lives in a practical way. Even though it's radical information and it's higher knowledge that's shocking, doesn't mean it will not improve our everyday lives in a practical, tangible way in terms of what's important, what's of value, what would see on this earth.
Exactly. I was going to say it's going to completely almost reallow us to look at our value system and just be like, all right, do we really, what do we really value? Do we want to set the bar here, or do we want to change that?
Right. It's Venus is the ruler of Taurus, and right now Venus is in Capricorn with Pluto. Pluto's direct, and so Venus is our value system, and it's going to be there quite a while. Venus is retrograding through Capricorn, and I think we'll be in a conjunction to Pluto during this eclipse, and we'll have another conjunction in retrograde with Pluto. And so Pluto's our soul's evolutionary growth, the soul lineage, the shadow that we no longer spiritually bypass, but that we embrace to transmute it to light. And so Venus, in this conjunction with Pluto moving through Capricorn right now and during the eclipse, and the ruler of Taurus, where the node is shifting to, is a real call to, I think, evaluate how our values have shifted with all of the new information and new knowledge and new awareness and everything that we've seen shifting in our world. And how do we now operate and align and our personal power, in our personal truth, and operate according to those values? What does that look like moving forward? That's the thing we're creating, we're figuring out right now. How do I move through in a new presentation of those values? It's the end of a long, long cycle. This is a karmic closure of, again, everything we've ever believed to be true is being revised right now, on a personal level, certainly on a collective and spiritual level as well.
Wow, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being guided to switch gears
Mm-hmm.
and ask you, let's have our listeners find out more about you and how you even got into astrology. Like, how did you, where did that, how did you get on this road?
It's very interesting because I'm a Taurus, and when Uranus moved into my sun sign in 2018, and I left 26 years in traditional healthcare to do astrology and herbal medicine and holistic work and Reiki. And so it was a huge radical shift.
Wow.
But I grew up in the South in a very Christian family, traditional Christian family. But what's interesting, Catriel, is that we grew up farming and fishing and hunting and growing crops and planting crops. And we did all of this by the Farmer's Almanac. My grandfather always had, the moon phases, the page pulled out of the book on the refrigerator in my grandparents' house, so we'd know when to go fishing. And I just loved studying the Farmer's Almanac. That's where I fell in love with a little girl. As a little girl, I became so fascinated with how, this was cyclical. This was something that was a guide. They knew it even then that it was a guide. It was interesting because there was that contradiction of terms with that strict Christian upbringing. And so it took me a long time to reconcile that, how do they, is it a conflict of interest? Is it, does it undermine one or the other? And the more I know about astrology, the bigger my concept of God gets. And if anything, it validates the existence of a divine creator. And so I think that they do support each other and validate each other for sure. But that's how I got into it, was literally growing up, with the Farmer's Almanac and living our lives and planning our lives around those moon cycles, really.
That's awesome. I started looking at that last year when I lived on a farm. And I was like, wow. I was like, wait, so astrology is part of farming, right here in front of me. I'm like, that makes so much sense.
It's amazing. And I still use it, and I'm a grounded fixed earth sign, sun sign. And, it's very clear that how we experience this organic life, this human life, is directly proportional to our awareness of the cosmos, that they are inseparable, and you can't experience one fully without a full awareness of the other. And that's just how it's manifest in my life. And, it took that radical Uranian shift to move me through that practical fear and that programming and that, implementation of societal, and even religious dogma. It took a huge shift to awaken me and move me into. When your soul calls you to something, there's just no way you cannot do it. You move through that fear, and it's pretty liberating. I thought I was going to die when I first realized, wow, Uranus is moving into Taurus with Black Moon Lilith. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get electrocuted. And now I see this, the most liberating experience, because what it allows us to do is really move through our fears. Everything is so fear-based, and that's such a programmed vibration, that fear. And I think we're learning right now our own value. Venus is showing us our own worth, and Pisces and Neptune are showing us, how to have self-compassion, and Pluto is showing us how to stand in our power. And Chiron, our wounding, and Aries, the identity. We are really healing as an individual and as a society and as a humanity, like never before. Especially with that, I think that Uranian big jump, that 84-year cycle, it's going to be a massive expansion.
Yeah.
And it has positive, very, very positive possibilities. It's exciting. It's exciting to be living during a time like this.
Right? It's not boring.
Mm-hmm. It is not. we will be in the history books if they still have books.
I think when you were talking about things being discovered and everything, I'm like, I think we might hear from NASA during that time, like saying we have a whole new galaxy that we can jump on now.
It would not surprise me. It would not. Nothing would surprise me. I mean, I really believe it's limitless possibilities at this point. And I think when Jupiter moves into Pisces, it will be such a nice shift into compassion, our interconnectedness as a species, and our connection to nature and the spirit realm. And it has every potential to be just beyond the mass of spiritual awakening that we're having now. I think it'll be a real call to that higher, depending on where you are in your journey, that Pisces realm, that Neptune realm, it's a double-edged sword. It's also where we escape reality, and Neptune moved into Pisces, I think like 2012, and that's how we've seen all of these escapism tendencies, where it's the opioid addictions taking off since then, and escaping through like electronics or Hulu or whatever you're binging on, anything to check out from reality. And that's certainly a viable option for you if you, exert your free will. But I do believe that people are longing for something more. They know that the way the systems are now is not supporting us as a species. And I think humanity is as a whole is longing for that spiritual shift and that spiritual awakening. So I do believe it'll be a real return to compassion and compassion for one another. And we need that right now.
Totally.
There's so much division. And I think that division will narrow, especially between like January and maybe April, when Jupiter's in Pisces. We'll see that expansion of the compassion of the Creator, without less judgment, more allowance for people to do that whole Sagittarius thing, forge their own path, explore their own. It's really like a living namaste,
Right.
That's what it holds the potential for. And I'm sure keeping my fingers crossed for that one and trusting, spirit for that manifestation. Absolutely.
I love that. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we must be doing something very transformative during this podcast, because my sun sign's Scorpio and yours is Taurus. So like we're balancing things right now, which is so cool.
Oh, yes. It's polar opposite. That's right. It's the mirror image. It's the duality, the axis of duality, the polarity, the yin, the yang, the dark, the light. And so your sun sign Scorpio, that's interesting. Very, very interesting. So that's where the nodes are shifting. So the south node will be in Scorpio in your sun sign, and the north node will be in Taurus, and so what is that? Taurus is, what I value, that I have, it's mine, and Scorpio is what we share on this interconnected, communal level. And so with the south node in Scorpio, I think it's going to be like a time where we can let go of like codependencies and needing others to complete us. And if we embrace that north node, it's going to be a real direction of self-sustainability, what really feels abundant, eliminating excess, what is enough for just me, that there really is no lack, that someone else. But there's also that connection to that Aquarius energy with Uranus there. And so by showing up as a solid form, complete in and of myself with that North Node in Taurus, then I can show up in a better form for others. It always reminds me of like when you're on an airplane and the stewardess is like, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your child, right? That's kind of like the North Node in Taurus. Ground into your body, listen to the physical senses that you have, know who you are, know your worth, know what you value. And then we can operate and show up for others in our best form. And that's really, what makes us go around is when we show up in our individuation, our individual form, all our uniqueness. And so I hope that Jupiter and Pisces will give us a little more shift into lack of judgment and division, because there's so much division right now. And I hope that that's one of the things we'll shift out of. I truly do.
Yeah.
I do.
I agree. What is your moon in?
Oh, Libra. Double Venus rule.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And it's, yeah. So, and you, I'm so curious now.
Cancer.
Wow. Super, super. Yeah. And, you know, Cancer and anything Venusian do so well together. Venus loves to be in Cancer. And so I always say water and earth are kind of the same. You know, if I'm doing a reading and someone has, you know, very little water or a lot of earth or vice versa, I'm like, it's okay, because there's just as much, if you're lacking earth elements or earth placements in your chart, but you have a ton of water, it really compensates for it. There's more water on this planet than there is earth. They really work hand in hand, you know?
Yeah.
They do. They balance it out.
I think I got a lot of water and earth, which is funny. And a lot of fire. Air's kind of the one that kind of dwindles a little bit. And it's so weird because I'm like so up in the clouds.
Well, that is interesting. And, you know, even with a Libra moon and that being an air energy, that Venus influence just kind of pulls it back down to earth for me, you know. But it is about operating in values, and it is the beautiful expression of it and the organic form of it for me. And, you know, I had to come over into your territory. We've all had to be in that Scorpio realm. This has been like a really intense Scorpio season. Oh my gosh, I was so relieved when the sun like saw the fiery sign of Sag. And now, you know, Mars is getting ready to move out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius in December. Yeah. So all of those deep hidden truths that were discovered and brought to light, you know, during the lunar eclipse. And, you know, Mars is there now ready to act on them, to you know, it's that arrow is on the target. Yeah, it's so funny. The lunar eclipse in Taurus on that initiated the nodal shift on the 19th was exactly conjunct almost exact. My sun's at 26 degrees on Algol. And this solar new moon eclipse is conjunct my ascendant. So, that's funny. It's been pretty heavy.
What degree point is your ascendant in?
16.
16, okay. Mine's, I believe it's 12.
Yeah, and I think when you're dealing with eclipses, it's a pretty tight orb. You know, it's a loose conjunction. I like to operate on like 2 degrees when it's an eclipse point. But yeah, I feel it. You know, it's my ascendant, and it's just, you know, it's less than 6 degrees, and I certainly feel it. But yeah, so and many of us, it seems like every reading I've done for the past 4 months, it's hitting everybody's chart like spot on. And the fixed signs, boy, all the fixed signs, they're feeling it. And I'm glad we'll be able to ground into some things and put some of this thought into tangible, practical form as Mercury grades through Earth signs next year. It'll be a big relief. It's been kind of a kooky year as far as the astrology.
Yeah.
A little unorthodox.
I'm curious. Yeah. Have you ever heard of Chris Witecki?
No.
So back in 2017, I'm like, yo, I really want to know more about astrology, you know? I'm tapping into a lot of different things, and I just need to know more. And so I came across Chris Witecki, and I learned from his style to start off, really, you know? And it was so mind-blowing for me because he's also a Taurus. But he literally takes things down to the degree point of like explaining the energies. And it's, oh my gosh, it was life-changing for me to see his, he calls them the degree point steps. And he'll essentially use a form of like numerology and astrology together to paint this epic picture. And it's like, I'll have to send you some information on it.
Yeah.
But it goes through all of like going from 0 degrees. 0 degrees would stand for like the Scorpio energy. And like the 1 energy would be Leo. All the way up to the 11 energy, which is Virgo. And like looking at this, I can't look back. Like it puts so many things together, so many pieces together that it's like, whoa. So like when I ask like degree points, now I'm looking at it from the perspective of like even more preciseness. I feel like the reason that it's like so big in my world is like my midheaven is in Virgo, so it's very like into the details.
And it all applies, and that is just one more layer that you can peel back of, the lotus or the onion or whatever. But it sounds like a nice take adding in numerology to like your degree theory, like from Nicholas Tangeman. So this is, and the Sabian symbols, like I find them fascinating to look at when you're taking it down, point by point. And I've got my North Node in Pisces. And so Jupiter is getting ready to move through Pisces very quickly, 5 months. And so this is the time when we want to like really watch those degrees if you have important points in Pisces. I want to see what happens when Jupiter hits my North Node. And that's going to be, for a big giant gaseous planet, it's moving pretty quickly, 5 months through Pisces before it goes into Aries. So we want to watch those degrees and really know what they mean, peel it back. We can just go layer upon layer and just, it's an endless wealth of information that we can keep digging in. And there's just so much. There's so much. And I love that. I would love to have the information on him for sure. Yeah. Because I love degree theory. I have a couple of critical degrees in my chart. So yeah, it's pretty important to know what they represent.
Yeah, like for instance, I think one of my favorite degree points to look at is 22. So 22 is actually the 2 is the Cancer energy. So there's like essentially you would have 2 different vibrations, 2 separate different vibrations coming together, and the 4 is the Aquarius energy. So it's 2 different vibrations going and shifting into a new frequency, essentially. It's like a chemistry project.
Wow, that's amazing. I've always thought of like, we had a ton of 22 degrees. Big planets at 22 degrees last year. Pluto was at 22 degrees forever this year. And so I think of that as a make or break, do or die, use it or lose it degree when I think of 22 degrees. It certainly is, it catches your attention. That it requires some action, some reconciliation. But I love looking at the degree points, especially your critical ones, because they hold the power. They hold the key for our soul to evolve, you know? Mm-hmm.
And especially as a, your Earth being in Scorpio, you're, going deep,
You're like a double sleuth with that Sagittarius seeking that higher spiritual truth, upward. And then that Sun in Scorpio looking for the hidden truth down inward. Like, it's really like, you'd make a great private investigator.
I've been saying that lately. I'm like, well, maybe when I get to Israel, I'll literally, apply for Mossad, like they'll, pull me in and I'll be in, Israeli intelligence. I could see that happening.
Yeah, you would have the placements for it for sure, but it is that discovery of the unknown, whether it's outward or inward, hidden or, in the light of the day. It's a wonderful thing to discover that truth. And it's different for all of us, our value systems are different, our truths are different, our awareness is different, our paths are different. And so, it's so important in all these crazy energies that are really operating on fear-based programming right now that is trying to forge a division that we, as much as we can, as much as we want space for ourselves to explore and evolve on our own path, if we could, lend that same provision to others, it would be a really, really nice thing to see, have that compassion for others to move through their process and their path through all this, because we're all going through really big changes right now. No one knows how to do it right. So just judging someone else's path is not going to benefit anything. And it just drives that wedge of separation even deeper. So I hope that, and I think I see that lifting. I see a lot more acceptance of, people saying, just because you think differently from me, that's that South Node in Sag leaving. We can see that, letting go of that, almost like cult of personality, it's like Sagittarius that it's my way and it's the only way. We're starting to see that South Node really being eclipsed out, where we have this ability to just ground into our own path and allow others their own process, So that's a beautiful thing that I can already see and feel shifting. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this is a powerful shift. If you could say one thing that has been shifting so much that you could see in your own life, what would it be?
Oh, I can see because of the Venus influence, and now that it's in Capricorn, and I have Capricorn in the first house, and so anyone who experienced Capricorn last year as that stellium crumbled our systems globally, if you want to know how that affects you, look at Capricorn in your own chart. It's in my house of identity. And so what I'm really seeing come full circle are the loops and the patterns that I'm keenly aware of, and the ability to end them.
Yeah.
That thing that been repeating and stuck in so many different areas, whether it's a mindset or an actual mode of operandi, it's changing. There seems to be an ending and a release and a letting go. So that's really nice, to see the loops. That's what I call them, these loops of repeating patterns.
Yeah.
Whether they're just mine or they go through my ancestry. That's the biggest shift I've seen, is the ending of the repeating cycle.
Wow. You know what I just saw in my head when you were talking about the loops and stuff? So my friend does DJing and stuff. I'm looking at, the little electronics for this machine, it's all frequency and everything. And I see it all in music, and it's like we're making a new song.
Yes.
A different type of song,
It is beautiful. What a great analogy. It's a new song. We're writing a new book. We're writing a new constitution.
Really?
A new soul sovereignty contract. It's what a privilege. What a gift, right?
Yeah.
Gift.
Wow. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
No. I forget we're even on here. I'm just having so much fun.
I know, right? I have to look back, and I'm like, oh, okay.
No, I'm just grateful to, be able to have this banter about what I get excited about. I think astrology is just, it's a cosmic forecast. It is definitely not the guiding light, but it is a support. It's one of the spiritual tools that we can use in a huge toolbox of many of them. And so it just kind of tells us, how to prepare. If we have an awareness, we get out of our heads and we don't get a terminal attitude and we don't live in victim mentality. We can see that this too shall pass. And so
yes,
that's the thing, is that it can really serve as a tool to move through the energies more effectively.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how can our listeners find you? You do different astrology readings, correct?
I do. I am the reader for astromatrix.org and their app and website. You can book through there, or you can book directly through me. I have a Book Now page on my Facebook and Instagram, which is at the Dawn of Astrology, or facebook.me, thedawnofAstrology.com. So, or you can just look on my social media sites at my LinkedIn, and I'll have all of the access to any way to get in touch with me, my information, my content, or to book. So there are several options there, whether it's through the website, an app that I work for, whether you do it with me directly. So yeah, it's all on there at the Dawn of Astrology, and I'd be happy to help anyone take a closer look at their own personal chart so they know how to navigate these energies more effectively.
Wow, I love that. And we'll put all of that up there. I'll get all the information so you have it in print form as well.
Great.
Thank you so much for joining me on here. I know there was a lot of shifts and everything, but this was literally perfect.
It's been such a pleasure. I've so enjoyed talking to you, Catriel, and I can't wait to catch up more.
Yes.
It's been very
Oh, I can't wait to talk to you more, and you're always welcome on Energy Speaks podcast, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I thank you all, divine, beautiful souls, for listening. This is Energy Speaks podcast, over and out.